Alright, this video is going to be named Why I Prefer Using a Bandsaw Rather Than Whittling Out of a Block of Wood. Okay? Now, I've been using a bandsaw since I was 12 years old. My father had an old 12-inch Craftsman bandsaw that you couldn't wear that thing out. It was a wonderful saw. Now, as I make this video, I want you to understand that I'm not being critical of anyone that doesn't own a bandsaw, okay? That's not the purpose of this. I know a lot of people, they live in apartments, they don't have room for a bandsaw, they don't, and all that other stuff. And really, it's better to buy a good bandsaw than buy a cheaper one. They're expensive, I'm not going to deny that. I have a Delta 14-inch that back when, that thing's old, and back then I paid close to $600, $700 for it, in other words. So I know they're very expensive and stuff. I'm just making this video not to be critical of people who don't have a bandsaw, okay? I'm just making this video to show you why that I normally don't don't just start with a block of wood and go on. Most of my teaching is like that. I've started with a block of wood on a lot of projects so that you could see and went on. But my preference has always been to use the bandsaw. And like I said, I've been using one since I was 12 years old. There's no problem to it. I would buy another one. I would not haste to buy another one because I've just used one. And it's not just for cutting. Before I ever became a carver, you know, I didn't become a carver till I was probably in my 30s. So I've been using a bandsaw since I was 12. So I was doing it for 15 years or more before I even started to carve. I make little things. I love the bandsaw. I still do. To me, it's the tool that I use all the time. So, what I'm trying to explain in this is why, if you really want to be a carver, if you really want to carve in your life and do it all the time, then I would suggest that one day that is a goal that you would be looking for, is to use a bandsaw, or to get a bandsaw, in other words. And once you start using one, you will love it, you will love using it, and you will love being able to cutting your figures out and everything like that. You will. So this is the reason why. All right, now this is a block of wood that we normally would cut a figure out of. And this is the bandsawed figure right here, in other words. Now, you say, well, what's the difference? Let me put this up against this one right here, okay? You say, well, what's the difference? Not a whole lot of difference. The main difference is I've already got mostly my shape done, okay? I save a lot of time carving. I don't have to worry about, you know, removing as much wood. That's the main thing a lot of people use a bandsaw, is that they don't have to use as much time roughing it out, in other words. Sort of like a lot of people carve rough outs. And if you know anything about rough outs, well, they're very similar. I think something like 80% maybe of the carving is done, and you finish off the details and stuff. There's a lot of people just carve nothing but rough outs. I'm not much for rough outs. Okay, that's just me. That's my preference. I like to carve my pieces out. I like to saw them out and carve them myself because I do a lot of miniature work. And I can do the same thing with a block of wood. I just like it better where I don't have to do it, and I can cut it out, especially when it comes to big figures. Now, small figures, there's not a lot of roughing out, but big figures, yeah, there is a lot of roughing out when it comes to it. In other words, if you're just doing out a block of wood, I'd have a video called carving carving a character out of a block of wood, and it's a big character, and so it took a long time to do it. I think it was like 13, 14 parts, 15 parts to this thing because it took a long time to carve it, to carve this thing out. So if you can use a bandsaw, then you eliminate a lot of the problems that you have, especially when it comes to the head. Now, the reason I say this is by shaping the head the way I do, it makes it much easier for me to finish the head quicker. Whereas if you look this way, also, when I'm doing a 3-inch figure, and they're both 3-inch here, I can even extend that head even more to give more expression on the face. Now, as a flat plane carver, that's very important to me, okay? It's very important to me because the face, to me, is the main course of a carving, no matter what. Now, I know the body is too in a lot of ways, but to me, the face on flat plane carving means a lot to me, and I'm going to show you why. And I'm going to compare, show you how by extending this face or by making it a little bit bigger, I just get more expression out of it. And you know, I carve very deep cuts and things like that, and so what we're going to do on this, we're not going to do the body, we're just going to do the head. And I'm going to show you that by cutting it out, how much more I feel that I get, or I'm able to get a better facial features and stuff like that, in other words. And I'll show you against the ones that I've carved out of a block of wood. And like I said, I can extend that face even further if I want to do something else. Now, it's already basically rounded in a lot of ways. See, I don't have to do a lot when it's cut out like that to round it. I really don't. I carve, and where it takes me maybe an hour to carve something out of a block of wood, a small figure, I can do it probably in less than 30 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever it is. And see, I can just basically get this thing rounded off pretty quick, in other words. So you do have an advantage. Now, like I said, I know a lot of you will live in apartments. I know a lot of you can't afford a bandsaw. I'm not saying you have to have one. But this is why I use one. And like I said, I've used one for a long time. But I have a feeling once you use one, you're going to find out real quick you love it. Once you use a good bandsaw and cut out your figures and cut out the shape that you want and eliminate a lot of the rough out that you have to do, then you will enjoy it and as much as I do. So, see, already I've almost got this head rounded. I mean, I've almost got this thing completely rounded and ready to go ahead and start on my facial features and everything like that. Now the knife, I'm going to be using different knives, okay? This is a knife I made myself. Now, I didn't make the blade. I made the handle, okay? I didn't make the knife. I made the handle. This is a OCCT blade that I got from not Woodcraft, but the Woodcraft shop. And I made a handle for it that I like. I really like this handle, and I'm using it today, in other words. When I want you to make sure I don't make knives, okay? Not like Blake and other people make knives. Jim Hahn, all these people make these fine knives. I don't make knives. I'm not that good at that. But I can make a handle that I like, and that was why I made it like this, because this handle really, it's very plain, but it fits in my hand very good, and this is a good blade, and I've made it, and so I made the handle. Did not make knives, so don't ask me, can I have one of your knives, Gene? Because it's, you know, get you a good OCCT blade, and make you a handle. All right, now look, already I've got basically him ready to be detailed, and that just took a little bit of time. I didn't have to do so much roughing out underneath here, what it does. I can, but come like this, and like this, both sides. We'll take that, but I can cut my carving time in half by cutting the piece out. So then you ask me, well, what's the best bandsaw blade to get? Let me tell you something. There's a million answers for that, okay? I have used Delta. Now, I would say an old Sears saw, if you can find one of them old Sears 12-inch bandsaws, those things, well, they were workhorses. You couldn't hardly, but they don't make them anymore. And Sears brand now, I would not necessarily recommend. I don't, of course, Sears is shut down, so I would not recommend and a Craftsman, because I don't know who makes Craftsman now. That's why I would not recommend it. Okay, I just wouldn't recommend it. It's not something I would recommend at all. But I have a Delta. I like the Delta brand. They are not cheap. I will admit that. Come up into here. I'm just going to kind of cut that a little bit for the face. I have a Delta. I love it. It's an older Delta. It's not the newer one. Blake Lunsford just got him a brand new Delta, and he seems to really like it. Delta's a good brand. Jet, I understand, is a good brand. Grizzly's a good brand. There's a lot of good makers of bandsaws. My issue on a bandsaw is some of these bench top bandsaws. It's not that they're bad bandsaws. They just don't have the power. I've used them and I don't like them. They just don't have the power. I had a Ryobi 9-inch bandsaw and I just got rid of it. I did not like it because it did not have the... Now for small stuff, yes. But don't be trying to cut no 4-inch stuff and stuff. It's going to bog down on you. So, all right, let's see. But you see how quick now I can get things carved. Yeah, Jet, Grizzly. I've never used the rigid, so I don't know how the rigid is. It may be a pretty good bandsaw. I just know this. If you get one, you want one, to me, with at least a 1 horsepower motor. Now, a lot of guys have said, well, I use a 9 or 10-inch bandsaw, and it's fine for me, okay? And that's fine. That's good, okay? Maybe even an apartment, that's all you could put in there. But what a lot of these guys have done is they've taken this 9 or 10-inch bandsaw, and it was one guy who told me, oh, mine works great, and then I went and looked at it. And what he did, he changed motors on it. He put about a 1.5 horsepower motor on. Well, yeah, that sucker's gonna cut then. I just feel a 1 horsepower, at least a 1 horsepower motor, is probably best for a bandsaw, because so it won't bog down on you and stuff like that. In other words, and you see already, we're just talking here. I've already got a lot of this already done. So, and I'm going to show you, being a flat plane carver, I like to carve deeply into my figures. So, especially with facial expressions. So I like to have the have it go out even more. Anyway, but there are different people like different bandsaws, and I've read, and you got to watch with bandsaws. I read on YouTube they had a certain 10-inch bandsaw that everybody was just, oh, they did praising and all this stuff, and then you know, this guy wrote on wrote on the thing that he got one, and it couldn't track right, and it kept the belt, the blade kept coming off and all this stuff. And then somebody said, yeah, I've had that garbage, and it, you know. So be careful when you go to buy, and basically what you can do is look for a used bandsaw. That's the best thing. If you can find a used bandsaw, and then please find one that's not, you know, too old. And if you have to redo it a little bit, because you can redo bandsaws. I've redone that old 12-inch Craftsman. I redid it with putting new. That was when you get Craftsman parts. That's harder today to get Craftsman parts. All right, and you see already I've already got a lot of this guy done, but I want to show you when I cut my saw. If you look from the side profile, when I cut it out, I always bring out that head a little bit more, because of one thing, because I like to make the deep cuts in the face, just like this. I'm going to come down real and make a deep cut. There we go. And come down like this and make real deep cuts for my figure. And so, see how deep that is? Okay. See how deep that cut is? And then I'm just going to make him a little happy face. Or a somewhat happy face. Go. And then kind of come up underneath here and sort of flip it. And then just kind of come down here and remove a little bit of that right in there. Cut that. There we go. See? Look at that. See what I'm saying? But I like to really cut deep in, and I don't know, if I don't have to do as much rough out work, I enjoy it. Okay, it's that simple. So now what I want to do, see how deep I cut into this? I'm gonna just take a little bit of this off right here on my face. I'm not gonna go on the ears and all this stuff. I'm just gonna show you a little bit. I'm just gonna come down here on the, just cut a slot for the eyes, and all right, now take a little bit more off of this in here. But you see how much quicker I was able to work and do that face. Now what I want to show you is just like that. There you go, see? Now what I want to show you is I'm going to go get another piece. A couple of those ones I carved out of a block of wood, and I want to show you a little bit of the difference in the faces when I'm able to bring that face out a little bit, in other words. Here's the one that I did with the businessman. Now, from the side, look at his face, see? And all that. Now look at the face from this one, from this side, in other words. Lot more definition. Lot more definition. If you look at him from the front. A lot more defining in the flat plane type thing than this, because on the blocks, especially the smaller blocks, I can't get as much definition I do when I cut it out as I do whenever I just use the block. You see? Now I used to, like I said, I carved everything out of a block of wood at first, and I just didn't get what I wanted to. So that's when I got so I started cutting them out, and I began to realize I get a much more expression out of them. I can make the heads a little bit bigger and all that other stuff. It's just a whole different thing, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that if you're a poor carver, that if you get a bandsaw and cut it out, that your stuff is going to get better. But no. And when I say poor carver, I meant beginner carvers. I don't mean a poor carver. I think everybody carves to the best of their ability, and I like them. I'm talking about the fact that if you're first learning to carve, I don't want to show you some of this, my first stuff. It was terrible. It really was. That's before I realized flat plane and all. Oh, golly. Here we go. But it's just that I can get more facial expression out of this piece than I can with just a block of wood. Okay? Now, I can, all right? And I guess if I really tried, I could probably do it also with a block of wood, but I like to cut my stuff out, get it set, and get it